All right, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my GEMP game review series. I am your host, Chris Gogolen. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening. We got a few things we can talk about tonight. Obviously, it's been an interesting week so far in the Star Wars CCG universe. Let's start with the February OCS event that just finished up uh, 24 hours ago. Our first of 6 months have been completed, and our top two players that qualified Brian Fred and Bastion Winklehouse here. No surprise there. Both these guys were qualified last year. Bastion's been qualified every year. Brian may have too. Um, I forget just offhand. Some certainly close calls, honorable mentions here to Chris Kelly, Justin Desai, Nick Reich, Matt Wadden, Joe Olson, Chris Hull, Joker King with the 10-2 month, and then a bunch of other 9-3s, 8-4s, and so on and so forth. Shame on these four guys who didn't play any games. Couldn't find time to play one Star Wars game. Nah, it's okay. We appreciate your donation. Thank you for signing up, even though you weren't able to play. I don't have any information about the foils just yet, but everyone who played 12 games will get 2 copies of the February foil. If you played at least 8 to 11, you get 1 copy of the foil. So looks like 40, 50, 60, 70-ish people, give or take. 68 people or so are going to earn themselves a foil slip for this month. So congratulations to those. The first round of foils, the first wave, will be mailed out in June after month 3 of the OCS is completed. So we're doing February, March, skipping April because we've got some other events going on there. We're going to talk about those too. And then we're going to get into May for the third month. Then we'll have our first season of the year completed. We'll mail out the OCS foils in June for those 3 months combined, and then we'll start the second heat. July, September, October, I think, are the 3 months in question there. So the February event is over. March is already starting. We've already had a couple of games played. Casey's sitting at the top of the leaderboard right now, 2-0, off to a good start. Casey was one of my 4 losses last month. So good to see him off to a good start there. Jared off to a 1-2 start. Sure, not the way he wanted to start off this month, but taking 2 losses this early. But still, only a handful of games have been played, and plenty of people still left to get their 12 games in. I do want to take a peek and see if we got anything going on here. I saw Endor Death Star 2. I got excited, but it's sealed. We got some OCS. There's a table up right now. Premier Reflections 2 series going on. But the other big upcoming event I did want to take a minute and talk about because that's going to segue into. Hopefully, I was trying to find, hopefully, some Premier to Death Star 2 games will be going on. Apparently, there's been a big push in those lately, especially since this. Where is it? There's the sealed one. Do we not have the league created yet? Oh, Retro event right there at the top. Coming up here, April 1st is the big event. There's already about 40 people or so signed up for it. It is constructed. It is Premier to Death Star 2. That's the Worlds 2000 format, basically. If you are not one of these people and you want to sign up to play, which is awesome because looking at some of these names, a lot of these names are not the familiar faces that we see playing in every tournament. Some of them are, of course, but then there's a handful of guys here who, this is their first event, or they haven't played an event in a while, or sporadically just playing things, maybe a random league here or there. So to see them excited to come back and play in a competitive format, we definitely like that. All the information for said league can be found here. You got to sign up for it. We're going to call it Retro 21, huh? All right, so here's all the information that Jared put together for it. Jared's the lead organizer of the event. Thanks to him for stepping up to put this together. Here's how it's going to work. 10 games, OCS format. Top 8 cut to match play. So certainly going 9-1 guarantees at least a play-in for the match stage. So if there's more than 8 people who are 9-1, certainly possible depending on the number of people who sign up. You'd have to get like 100 people to sign up, but have that many guys be 9-1 or better, I would think. Although I guess not, because it's not a true uh, like Swiss tournament where you'd have to worry about that. You could have a bunch of guys who just sort of each play some of the, if a couple people go 0-12, so they've got multiple losses to some of the top guys in an OCS style format. I guess that would certainly be possible. So, excuse me, little little congested today. But yeah, so you got 10 players, 10 games, cut to a top 8, and then do a little match play after that. You've got 40 days to get your games in, April 1st through May 10th. Excuse me. Um, and the best part, registration free. None. It's free. It's a free competitive tournament, which is awesome. And not only that, it's a free competitive tournament that gives out prizes. There's a whole separate little forum here for prizes for said tournament. Prizes. Look at what Jared's giving away here. A Japanese Devastator. Mint condition. That's worth a pretty penny, especially to the right people. Uncut sheets. Uncut sheets. Very excited to start giving out some of those again. We haven't done that in a while. They're not the easiest thing to ship, um, but it's easier to just ship them to people for winning events rather than bring them to a live event and then have to have the issue of them trying to get it back home. Also, we'll be giving out some random ones. Gonna give out a few Death Star 2 starter decks randomly given out. I've got a pile of played condition cards that will be given out. Top 8 finishers. These are the new 2021 top 8 foils. It's the Ice Plains and Ray's Encampment. I think we showed off the ones for last year. Let me see if I still have them handy. Oh, you know what? They're in the other box. It was Tantive and Conquest were the AIs for 2020, given out to the top 8. Let me see if I have them right here, actually. I do have them right here. So it was an AI of the Conquest. Ooh. You know what? Let's make this a little bigger for a second. AI of the Conquest. And the other one is the Tantive 4, which I think is pretty cool. Alternate image of the Tantive 4. Those cool Reflections 4 booster packs that we gave away to all the world's participants. They will be redos of them. The unlimited version basically doesn't have the signed cards by Warren Holland in them because we don't have signed cards by Warren Holland to continue to keep giving away. Also get some trophies. All players who play the 10 games get a white border foil V-slip. Cool stuff there. And you also get a GEMP booster pack, which will have 4 alternate image virtual cards out of a possible 10. I think I just got one of those. Maybe I'll see if I can open it so we can see what's in it. I think I got one of those for the GEM PC or something. We'll check that out in a second if I can. But I did make an announcement that I would be adding to this prize pool. And there are 2 things that I'm adding to this prize pool. So, being that this is the World's 2000 event, I had this idea that how cool would it be if we got the 2000 world champion to sign a bunch of cards that were in his championship winning decks, and then we gave those out to people as prizes as well. Everybody would get at least one card. Possibly they would all get two, depending on how many people sign up and how many cards we had for him to sign. And so I reached out to the 2000 world champion, Matt Sokol, and pitched him this idea. And being the Hall of Fame caliber guy that he is, his immediate response to that, without hesitation, was absolutely. Send me ever many cards you want. I'll sign them. You know, even if it's some commons and uncommons, I probably have them lying around here. Don't worry about it. I'll sign some of them. Just don't. I don't have like 15 X-wings lying around that I can sign all those. But yeah, I'll absolutely sign a bunch of cards and send them back to you guys so we can hand them out as prize support. So in addition to all of this other wonderful stuff, you could get some pretty cool cards signed by the 2000 world champion Matt Sokol. And I thought that was pretty cool. And thanks to Matt for doing it. I'm going to try not to get carried away. But, literally I started pulling cards from his light side deck, from his dark side deck, to send to him to sign. And then I realized, I got like 150 cards here. And that might be a little too aggressive. So I might have to thin that out a little bit. But of course, thank you to Matt for agreeing to do that. Very much, very excited about that, and hopefully some of the players will be excited to get some cards signed by Matt as well. But let's see if we got any games going on here that we can watch. We got Premier to Reflections 2. That's an interesting format. It's almost quite the Death Star, just a little bit further beyond the Death Star 2 format. So, Reflection, you've got, in addition to that, you would have had Tatooine and then Reflections 2, I think, before Coruscant came out. So, hunt down Throne Room. Hey, shocker. Hopefully we can get a game here to watch with like the OCS or something. Somebody picks that game up maybe. Or maybe we get a Premiere to Death Star 2. Hey, someone put a table up. Maybe we can get that game to check out and watch. Maybe it was one of you guys in the chat threw up a table, hoping to pick up some action. Oh, and just like that, they took it down. They heard us talking about it. They're like, oh no, don't pick my game. I don't want to be on stream. So, of course, I mentioned the cards that we're going to send to Matt Sokol to get him to sign. And we've been very excited about the number of players who are coming back to the game specifically for this event, or they only play on GEMP and they only play Premier to Death Star 2 format. Hey, Space Lug, whoever you are, thank you for putting a table up or getting a table up. So in addition to the 2000 world champion Matt Sokol going to sign some cards, I had this idea last night that wouldn't it also be cool if we got Matt's opponent in that final to sign some cards for us. It's a guy who hasn't been a part of our community since the Decipher era ended. Star Wars ended. He kind of hung around for a few months after that, a year after that. Got himself inducted into the Decipher Hall of Fame in 2002. And then kind of transitioned into Decipher's next big gaming product, which was the Lord of the Rings TCG. Played that for a number of years with his Team Canada buddies. But when I reached out to Yannick Lapointe last night at 11 o'clock at night and said, hey, I just had this idea. We're running this tournament and it's going to be online and it'd be really cool to give out some cards signed by you as prizes. Is that something you'd be interested in? Within 5 minutes, I already had a response back from him saying, absolutely, what do you need me to do? So, big shout out to Yannick. I'll be mailing some cards to Canada for Yannick to sign that we can also give out as prizes. Great guy, obviously. Decipher Hall of Famer. Hall of Famers, we stick together. Yannick was like, what's it going to cost for me to ship this stuff back to you? And I was like, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks. He's like, well, I'll happily reimburse you for it. And he said, how about instead of that, you just send me 10 or $15 worth of Star Wars cards that I can keep. Maybe some new stuff that I don't have. And it's like, you still have stuff? Maybe you should play in this tournament. So I'm going to be working on that this week to see if we can get Yannick to actually play, because that would be pretty cool too. Uh, but you know, just the fact that I can send him some stuff, and get him to sign some cards. 2000 world finalist, world runner-up, however he wants to sign it. I think is pretty cool. Yannick signed a lot of stuff with a lot of people back in the day, and certainly a big part of the origin of this game and that first wave, Team Canada. First world champion Raphael Assel and Yannick, one of the first, DPC Montreal champ, world finalist 2000, perennial qualifier contender, which was not easy in his region given he had the first world champion, and Dominic Deck Tech Gaudreau, also in his region. Amazing card player as well, multi-time world finalist in Dom. So, uh, yeah, that was just an exciting turn of events there. So, oh, thank you, Jared. I'm glad you like my ideas. So we're gonna get some of that stuff here, but all right. So what do we got? We got this Watto's Cube. We got some casual games. Might just have to just jump in. Oh, here we go. Premier to Death Star 2. Bam. That's what I was hoping for. What do we got? We got Monkey Ties against EBO. That seems like a classic matchup, right? So we start in mob points to pull Wakelimu. Wakelimu gets pulled by mob points. Right there, bam. Then you go into Sign Our Fleet system. You retrieve a force every time you deploy a tie. And then once per turn, when you lose a tie, you send it to your use pile. It's an awesome thing to run offset your course because you take no battle damage at the Death Star. So if you're trying to get around battle plan, you just deploy a tie to the docking bay. You deploy a tie to the docking bay, retrieve a force. When they come and battle your tie and try and kick you off your battleground, you just send it to your use pile. You take no battle damage, and you force them to keep battling you. The downside, of course, to that is if they have to draw their fire out every time they do, you lose a force. They retrieve a force. Ishii Tibbs. Oh, we're playing Ghetto EBO. The old Ghetto SWAD deck. There you go. Another player get B-Fred to sign. I tell B-Fred, that's actually how I found Yannick as quickly as I did on Facebook, because I typed his name in and it said, you have one mutual friend. There was like 7 Yannick points, and it was like, you have one mutual friend, Brian Fred. And I'm like, well, that's got to be him, right? That's got to be his profile. So I clicked on that one and then started looking through the photos, and I was like, yep, that's absolutely Yannick. So, yeah, we'll be sure to pass that along to Mr. Brian Fred. So, what do Ishii Tibbs do? Well, during your draw phase, place one card from your hand on bottom of used pile to draw a card from reserve deck. So take a card from hand, put it on the bottom of your used pile, kind of like Virtual Forlom does, but it's only during draw phase. So it's not any time. Because even Decipher knew you had to leave somewhat type of restrictions on that, at least for a while, until they made 3PO. All right. So he pulled this Death Star site. Don't know why he picked the control room. Maybe because he wanted to, in case he plays Rescue the Princess, wanted to convert their site. Wanted an extra force icon, but didn't want to give up 2 icons for the war room. Interesting. Lightside started the signal for a new secret base to pull your echolocations. So they got their 2 echolocations out. Next turn they'll pull the docking bay along with EBO. You're probably going to see a bunch of X-Wing swarms here, I would think. In this particular version, you don't really have the wherewithal to set up and have a matching pilot thing. Usually it's just a bunch of random ships and you kind of just wing it on power. Of course, the downside to that, especially when you're playing against TIE interceptors, is then you get into the SFS versus X-Wing laser cannon situation here. So certainly a slower start to these Premier Death Star 2 games. There's not all these as many automatic pulls. Death Star 2, Special Edition kind of started it with the objectives and being a little bit more consistent with things that you could pull. Actually, probably a little bit earlier than that. I mean, Dagobah started it pulling the sites, Jabba's Palace pulling the Jabba's Palace sites, getting your locations out consistently every turn. So there were inklings of those mechanics, but they certainly started to speed them up a little more with the objectives in Special Edition and going for more of the theme type decks. And then as it kind of played into getting multiple starting effects, you got mob points to pull a system, plus give you force activation at docking bays, which Imperial Arrest Order pulls your docking bays. Kind of became the staple activation platform for a lot of decks. You would just run those two platforms. Get docking bays, deploy guys to docking bays, get extra force activation. So your 1-0s become 3-0s, or your 1-1s become 3-1s or 2-1s when your opponent comes there to battle you still. So you get some strong activation early on in the game. And as we all know, the more force you activate, the earlier you activate it, the more you can do and the more pressure you can put on your opponent. So there's the docking bay. There's the third Ishii Tib. So he's got 3 Ishii Tibs on the table. They are triple dot, which that's the limit that he can have in play. Usually a deck like this will run 3 or 4 Ishii Tibs, and then probably 2 or 3 of the Narshada Wind Chimes, which will pull them out. Plus, at some point in the game, it could also let you retrieve for them. Help you absorb, get back some of that early damage. So now we've got EBO out. And what does EBO do, you might ask? Well, your systems, you deploy -1, you drain +2, and your total power is +3 in battles. So now, you can quite easily outpower some stuff. There's certainly a few variations of this. We have the generic X-Wings, where it's just deploy a bunch of stuff real cheap. Some decks you'll see use Incom Corporation, which deploys on a Rebel base location, which you've got access to with all of this stuff here. Even decks that'll just run the Hoth docking bay with Insurrection, put the docking bay out, and then put Incom Corp on it. So there was a TIG deck that was pretty strong with that, where you just stood up a bunch of speeders to the all over the ground and beat everybody up because you had great power. So Incom Corp replaces those generic Ability 1 permanent pilots with generic Ability 2 permanent pilots that add an extra 1 to power. So your Power 3 X-Wings become Power 4 X-Wings with Ability 2. So now you only need 2 of them together to draw Battle Destiny. 2 X-Wings, Power 4 each, Power 8 plus 3 from EBO gives you Power 11. And if you get S-Foils out, you can lock your S-Foils and make them Power plus 2 more. So now they're Power 6 apiece. You can organize the attack to give them plus 1 more power, make them completely immune to attrition, so now they're Power 7 apiece. Deploy cheap, Power 7, drop 4 or 5 of them, beat the crap out of somebody. It's kind of a good way to clear a space package, pretty good. Certainly some cannons will help with that. Shoot 1 or 2 guys down. We already saw Space Slug Masterful Move to get his Gick. Also a pretty important staple in decks like this. And without a automatic grabber on the table, could potentially be a card you get to play 2 or 3 times. Another card that doesn't always hit the table every game is Battle Plan. Somebody actually has to play it. It's not hidden under a shield anymore. Lost Home did get it into play. And Space Slug will have to pay 3 for that drain of 2 at Endor now. But Lost Home's not really all that far behind here. He's taken a couple of early drains, but he got himself set up. Now he's kind of in a position where he can really find a way to maximize his damage. There goes our shot of wind chimes. This is what I was talking about earlier. Search your reserve deck, take a non-unique alien into hand. Nice used Destiny 5. Get your SC Tibbs out, and then once per game, target one non-unique character on table. Draw Destiny. If it's less than X, retrieve X Force, where X is the number of copies of that card you have on table. So you've got 3 Issue Tibbs out. Just have to draw less than 3. We pitched a Bosch from hand as well. You just have to draw less than 3, which is fairly easy to do because a lot of your ships are Destiny 2. And then you get to retrieve 3 Force. Alright, so we got a Dreadnought coming to Endor to back that up, because now he knows the potential Lost Tome can put out. Lots of cheap ships and really, cycling through some cards here. And with the Issue Tibbs out, he can certainly set up some Destiny for later in the game. So he drops a Dreadnought. He drops a TIE Interceptor. The Interceptor then triggered Sinar, which would allow him to retrieve a Force if he had a Lost Pile, which he doesn't. His third effect he started was Resistance. That could come into play if you can get the 3 Battlegrounds. This does count as a Battleground. 2, possibly a third system or something somewhere. Lost Tomes got Dagobah. Okay. It's a system you can't force drain at. It's a curious play. Obviously, you can do that to get the hut. If you get it early enough and some extra activation, not 100% sure you need it in this type of game. You're giving yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 for you is 7. Plus, you're going to play at least 2 Battleground systems to drain at, right? 8, 9, 10, 11. And a deck that deploys everything fairly cheaply and puts a lot on the table as well. So I don't know that you necessarily need this little package, but we'll see where this goes. Darkside also has a bunch of defensive interrupts like Heavy Fire Zone and stuff like that let them deploy weapons from reserve deck. Maybe this isn't just a traditional EBO type game. We've got a Premier Obi-Wan. He's immune to less than 5. Certainly helps get around battle plan. And then he's just going to draw a bunch of cards. And then he'll issue Tib 3 times. Put back 3 cards on the bottom of his deck. Good way to cycle back some high Destiny interrupts. These guys have any cool keywords that you could trigger? No, they don't. They're not gamblers or anything cool like that where you could, put a couple cards together on the bottom of your deck and then set up like Sabak of some kind. I'm sure you could find another guy to add to the deck to do the same thing. Just another way to cause some force loss. Put a 6/5 together quite easily and set up a perfect and cause 2 card losses. Space Slug will continue his drain of 2 each turn over there at Endor. Lost Home drew big too. He just kept on drawing. He's got an Arcona. Okay. Transmission terminated. The Arcona is an interesting card that, again, sometimes in this format we do get to see. May move away from a battle at same site as a react. Kind of annoying little mechanic because you throw them down, they get around battle plan, and then when your opponent comes to battle you to get rid of them, they just react away to one of these other shielded sites and things like that, or to the other adjacent site. They've participated in a battle for the turn, so they can't be battled again. And then on your turn, you just move them back in front of them, block the force drain or whatever, satisfy battle plan potentially, and force your opponents to keep battling you. Kind of annoying. It's even worse when you combo them up with order to engage. Order to engage says if both players have presence at a location at the end of the battle phase and a battle did not take place at that location, uh, dark side loses 2 force or 3 force. I think it's 3 for not battling. So essentially, what you'd have, like, say you had an Arcona here. Say these are dark side characters, and they occupy all of your sites. You deploy your Arcona, they have to battle you to trigger order to engage, otherwise they lose 3 force. When they do, you just react and move in front of their other guys. And now they can't battle you because you were already in a battle, but they still have to lose force because you both have presence at the location. So, order to engage is another one of those evil cards that was rightfully shielded on defensive shields because it's just it's a non-interactive abusive strategy, and there weren't enough things at the time that canceled reacts. So there are a few things though, so they can certainly get blown up pretty good if your opponent has a way to cancel the react. Sense being one of them, but there's lots of answers for sense. And all right, it's kind of the big turn here for Lost Tome. He's got to make something happen here. Darkseid's got a pile of force saved. Now, the other benefit to Space Slug being piled up here at the Endor system is that to move or deploy requires +1 force there. So that does kind of stack things up a little bit. So he only activates 7 of his possible 17. He's going to drop a Lando and Falcon with a Landing Claw. There's another interesting light side card. Light side has a lot more of the interesting cards in this section of the game. It's all about tricks and gimmicks and those kinds of things. So Landing Claw will let Lando and Falcon attach to this Dreadnought. So while you're attached, you can't be attacked, can't be battled, and you block their force drain. So you block their drain, so you're not taking damage. You detach during your control during your control phase. You can detach, so that way you can drain for free with battle plan, and then you just reattach so they can't battle you and beat you up. I think one of the things when you come back to this Premiere to Death Star 2 format after playing a lot of the later formats is, you certainly realize how much the game got cleaned up by defensive shield and some of these other things. There's plenty of players out there who don't like them. We've seen this discussion on the forums recently this week as well. Players who consider this to be, where the true deck building challenge and skills all came in. And I'll give them that. It certainly was challenging to come up with creative ways to out, outplay your opponent, out cheese your opponent, if you will. Um, but there are certainly plenty of degenerate strategies that you have to spend so much of your deck doing all these, filling it with all these card slots to stop these negative interactions. If I need two or three counters for reacts or two to three cancelers for order to engage and that kind of stuff, frozen assets and beggar and draw their fire and you know all these weird intensive card combos. It's like, yeah, they just create a situation where there's nothing you can do about it unless you happen to have at that right moment that one card in your hand. And you can be ahead on life force by a bajillion. It can be like 35 to 5 and your opponent's like, there's the one card little combo lock that I needed and there's nothing for you to do. You just lose now. You're like, well, this isn't fair. I spent 40 minutes kicking the crap out of you and now I lose because you just spent the whole game just drawing up a dream hand. So, but it's fun. It's a fun alternative. It's a fun change of pace sometimes. It certainly lets you use cards that you haven't seen in a number of years, and you know, I don't think I can play this format like all the time, but I mean, I did for a while, but that was 20 years ago when I had an unlimited free time, right? So Lost Home now has half his deck in his hand. He's got 20 cards left down, 15 in hand. He can activate up to 18. He basically can activate all of it at this point. He's got the biggest drain blocked. His opponent put out another system to go to with just his little tie Vanguard. That's a tie we probably haven't seen much. You may deploy cards to same system or sector as a react, and he happened to save 16 force. So he's just going to plop this Vanguard down here, and what's the worst that could happen? His opponent drops a couple of ships to battle him. The instant the battle gets started, there you go. What's going to happen? Oh, Lost Home's apologizing, so I guess he may or may not be participating in the chat right now or watching the stream, or just realizes that I am streaming. So yeah, 16-4 saved. Vanguard. You can react, deploy a couple ties or whatever like that, so that's certainly a concern. Obviously, Lightside can drain with Obi-Wan for 2. Maybe he'll get hit with one of the dark side degenerate cards like Lost, always thinking with your stomach, right? Maybe we'll see an ice storm. Probably not, but something you could certainly see being a thing. Oh, he rushed it. He messed it up. Maybe he'll be nice and ask for a revert. So instead of detaching his Lando and Falcon so he would get around his own battle plan, he just paid 3 to drain for 2. Oops. Kids, don't do that. Detach your landing claw ship, drain for free, and then reattach your landing clawed ship. Hey, there's a big home one. Alright, so we're not going with the X-Wing version. Looks like we're going with some big ships. We've got a home one. We've got an Admiral Akbar. What does he do? Capital ships deploy -1 to same system. Once per game, take one Mon Calamari character or an Admiral's Order into hand from reserve deck. So he adds 3 to power, makes this thing power 12, and your capital ships deploy -1. With EBO out, they also deploy -1, so capitals would deploy -2 there. He does use a force and drop bigs for 1. There's that dreaded order to engage. At the end of each opponent's battle phase, if a battle did not take place at every location where both players have presence at the end of that phase, opponent loses 3 force. So if he decides not to battle here and just move some people over, he's going to have to lose 3 force for that. Now, of course, there is a card that cancels Landing Claw. There's actually 2 cards that cancel Landing Claw. One of them's a character, one of them's an interrupt. Alright. So Space Slug's got 30 force here, and he just checked his Destiny to see what that 1 card remaining is. 10 cards in hand, 30 force active. Going up against Akbar and Biggs. He's going to start with the Dreadnought. It's going to get barriered. There's a TIE Interceptor. Deploys a TIE, retrieve a force. Get back one of those TIEs he lost to that Obi-Wan drain. I feel like that's definitely something in this era too. Usually there's a lot less battling. If there is a battle, usually they're big battles. But for the most part, there's a lot of just sort of moving and jockeying around for position. So it's just retrieve 1 force each time you deploy a TIE. That's not the once per turn part. Once per turn part is you forfeit the TIE, or if you lose the TIE, it gets moved out of the lost pile to the used pile. Because it's just lost. So it has to go to the lost pile first. And then it gets moved to the used pile. So he's got a variety of TIEs here. Perhaps protecting against Grimtosh. You don't want to load up too much on the non-unique stuff. Unless you have something to protect it like Yarna. Hey, there's a lateral damage. The staple of all blowout cards. And Lightside's going to try and alter it immediately. He draws a 5. He draws a Hyper Escape, which is another good card that would have helped him out of this situation. Now, there is no tries on the table, so the altar is going to be lost, and he'll have to lose 2 force as well. There goes a Luke Jedi Knight and a projection of a Skywalker. Bring him before me is a fairly popular dark side deck, so Having at least a Luke in your deck is usually a good idea. The lateral damage did not work, so now Space Slug is not going to battle. He's going to pass his turn. And now he's got to lose 3 forts because of order to engage. So he loses a tie cannon from hand, Kifix from his force pile, and the Emperor's Shield from his force pile. The Emperor's Shield and the Emperor's Sword are interesting choices for because of Sinar, because they count as 3 ties. So when you deploy them, you can retrieve 3 cards. And then if you happen to get into a battle with them and then can then forfeit them to the used pile, you can kind of, again, keep the loop going and, again, kind of just drag drag the game out a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what either player has that can actually speed this game along. Because, right now we're looking at a drain blocked. They're both kind of sitting in front of each other here, but they're both kind of a little hesitant to battle. Obi's draining for 2, which Darkseid just deploys a tie or 2 and retrieves those cards right back. Oh, we got Major Hashin, is what Akbar pulled. I believe he's the guy who cancels lateral damage, doesn't he? Yeah. Adds 2 to power when piloting a Star Cruiser, adds 1 to hyperspeed armor, and cancels lateral damage targeting a starship at same system. So because of oppressive enforcement, the lateral actually went to the used pile. So that's certainly floating around there again, and there's always the possibility he's running 2 copies of it. So you want to make sure to get the Major out and get him aboard that home 1 pretty quickly. Stop that from happening again. I don't know. You guys watching, what's your favorite Premier Death Star 2 deck to play with? What's your favorite one to play with? For those of you watching this video later, nobody in chat answered. Well, that sucks. Alright, so we got a drain of 2. There goes a Meragic, who's good for getting systems out. You can pull him with Admiral Piet. Create that little bit of a pull chain. Imp command for Piet. Piet once per game gets Meragic. Meragic, when he's at a Scomp Link, once per turn gets you systems. He gets Hashin out. We're gonna get a Destiny check. You're kind of in a situation here where it's like, what's your incentive? If you're light side, it's what's your incentive to battle. Dark side's just gonna, unless you're drawing multiple Destiny somehow, you're not really gonna win on power. Your opponent can react and deploy extra stuff. He's got a Mountain of Force save to do it. And a good number of this stuff, these guys all forfeit for like 3. So if you can, set up a decent destiny, you can kill 2 ships. One of them's just going to go to the use pile, though. And if you're dark side, well, your only incentive and motivation to battle is to not lose force to order to engage. So, unfortunately, that is also the downside to this particular format, is we get a number of these games where you neither side really has any motivation to do a whole lot. And you get into these very long, grindy games. Sometimes you're just trying to run out the clock, right? See if there's any other games going on in the GEMP lobby that might just be a little more interactive. I feel like we're both, we're sitting here, we're waiting for like that big turn, waiting to see what happens. Hey, there's Monarch. He's playing 4. All right, now we'll get to see everything that's in Lost Home's hand here, and all the duplicates will go to the lost pile. So maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe things are about to get a little bit more interesting. Although, not 100% sure why he did this now, because his opponent could have kept drawing and could have drawn more cards. So, we've got a sense, 3 senses. They're going to be lost as duplicates. A Rebel Barrier, a Hujix, a Luke's Lightsaber, it could be worse, Obi, Kifix, Narshada Wind Chimes, the Independence, and Wedge Rogue Squadron Leader. So because he had no reserve deck left, because he tibbed up his lost card or so, his last card or so, uh, he wasn't able to play the sense to cancel the Monarch, and therefore lost 3 senses. We do have another Premier Death Star 2 game. Huntdown versus Tig. I'm going to pull that one up over on my other monitor for a minute. We'll see if that one happens to get a little more interactive. Because if Darkseid doesn't do something and have like some type of, you know, active battle here, this game's literally going to drag on for 40 minutes until one of them runs out of time. Maybe Lightside will run out of cards before then. But, Darkseid's just going to keep doing the tie loop, retrieving stuff. So Space Slug played all power to weapons. He's losing a force and losing short-range fighters to take up the 3 ties from his reserve deck. He takes 2 tie interceptors into hand from his reserve deck. He could have played the short-range fighters and just gotten one of those 2 ties, and then saved the all power for something else. But he's just going to retrieve the cards he lost anyway, so maybe he just wants to put some stuff back in his deck. Lightside here has a pile of force with this home one. So maybe somebody will actually do something here. Hey, we got a battle. There's an all power to weapons. Since we know he got rid of all the senses in his hand, he can't cancel it now. So all of those ties are now power plus 2 and immune to attrition. The Dreadnought is not, though. He draws Dengar and Punishing One as his lone battle destiny, but he's still ahead on by 20 power. So Lightside does draw 4, which either means Darkside's going to have to lose the Dreadnought or lose 2 ties. I would vote for 2 ties in this situation and then send one of them to the used pile. The Dreadnought's giving you more power because the Dreadnought makes each of the other, in addition to being power 5 itself, your ties present are each power plus 1 here. So he makes all these other guys one bigger, so he's adding 5 to himself plus another 4 to 5 more. And Lost Home is just going to concede. Obviously, not happy with his board position or really where his deck is going. So, thanks, guys, for playing, and good luck in any of your future Premier Death Star 2 games. We're going to switch over to this game real quick. This one seems like it has potential to be a little more interactive. So, we got Tig, who's got Luke hanging out at the docking bay, and a bunch of dudes in the cantina. We've got an Elam on the table, recently coated. Who can do some stuff at with plastoid armor at mobile locations. But they're also just power plus 3 at the same site as an Imperial. So a Destiny 4 character who's potentially power 4 is not all that bad. Taking on a hunt down deck here that has the Emperor and Janus camped out at the Death Star docking bay, being a mobile site that can't get hit with projection. Uh, Janus adds 1 to the force drains, and once per turn you can cycle a card. Luke docking bay transits over. That's going to force him to be captured. And now anytime he's with an Imperial, the Imperial will capture him. Light side or dark side gets to choose which of these two guys will take him as a captive, as an escort rather. And then now, at the end of every dark side turn, unless Vader is escorting Luke, dark side has to lose 2 force. They're both losing to Visage, but now if Vader hits the table this turn, because Luke is now a captive, Darkseid would not have to lose to Visage. So Darkseid went with IAO at mod points, as we discussed. Pull docking bays, deploy guys to docking bays, get extra force activation. Mobile docking bays can't get hit with projection, like we were saying. Oh, there's the never tell me the odds. It's the other advantage of these Elams and Wedge is that they're all, Destiny 4. Luke's a Jedi. He's Destiny 6. So, gotta be careful and never tell me the odds in TIG, though. Because if your opponent is ever suspicious of where it might be and they can find a way to trigger it to pop, they could always take Luke off the table, make him a captive, he doesn't count, and then, take your score down a little bit and then possibly, hit you. Now, I will say inherently dark side characters tend to have, other than the Emperor, most of the characters you'll see in dark side decks are lower destiny. Light side decks do have a fair amount of these non-unique aliens and stuff like that that are higher destiny numbers that we'll see play. This particular card, this is the one that is the bane of dark side decks in this format. Honor of the Jedi. Unless opponent occupies 3 battlegrounds, each time you must lose force, except from your own card, battle damage, or a force drain at a battleground, you can reduce the loss by 2. Immune to alter while you occupy any battleground. So all you have to do is occupy any battleground, anywhere, and Honor is immune to alter, and then Darkside has to get to 3 battleground locations in order to turn on a variety of sources of damage, whether it's Visage of the Emperor, whether it's occupation, you might have 3 battlegrounds covered that way. TTO, First Strike, little things like that that all cause damage. Limited resources, that kind of stuff. Honor subtracts from all of them. Search and Destroy. There's another one, which just is going to get automatically canceled because Vader's not out of Battleground. Oops. That was a little mistake. He's going to try and revert and see if his opponent will let him fix that. Hopefully he will. So, Search and Destroy requires you to occupy battlegrounds with 2 battleground sites with characters of destiny less than 4. There you go. Mara Jade, the Emperor's Hand to the Cantina. With Dr. E. Now that's certainly something else that Darkseid doesn't necessarily have going for it, is its lack, we'll say, of characters who draw destiny by themselves. So, alright, there comes the Search and Destroy. Docking may transit from here, I believe, is free, right? Yep, for free. So he spends his last force to initiate battle here. This could be interesting. Obviously, so he's going to swing at Wedge. He's got the highest forfeit, take him out of the battle. Then he's just going to try and draw decently, get a 4 or so, and possibly 4 will cover Melas, 5 would get rid of both. But a 4 would at least get rid of, anything he really draws is going to get rid of somebody, but oh, there you go. It's a 1 and a 5. So that's going to hit Wedge. The good old doctor here will do some operating, kick him out of the battle. Only cuts 2 power, but it does cut his biggest forfeit. But here's the downside, and that's Dr. E only forfeits for 3. So If light side draws higher than that, they both could have to end up dying because you don't want to leave Dr. E just kind of sitting there by himself. All right, dark side did what it needed to do. It drew the 5. Light side draws a 4, so it's a tie for power. Doesn't have to stack a card, thankfully. But the 4 attrition. Do you just clear the whole thing and get rid of everybody? If you do that, you lose your search and destroy. Not really going to do much good for you because of honor right now anyway, so... Oh, I take that back. Haha. Aliens are forfeit +1 because that's the Cantina text. So the Cantina in this case actually bites dark side in the ass, light side in the ass, their own Cantina text, making Dr. E forfeit +1. Yep, there you go. So Mara gets to live, search and destroy gets to stay in effect. But now what do? Vader goes there, flips Hunt down. You got to transfer him, but your docking bay transit from here is also free. So he could docking bay, transfer to Vader, and then docking bay transit the Emperor and Janice over here to Endor, and then that would give him his 3 battlegrounds, and then that would get around honor and cause search and destroy damage, as well as visage damage. There you go. That's a good turn by D. Byrne. It's a very good turn there. All because of the way those destinies lined up. Very good turn for him. Now he'll get a search and destroy damage. Now he'll get a visage ping. And he's not losing to the light side objective either. All right, well, we've gotten a little over an hour here already. I think you guys get the point of this format, Premier Death Star 2. Hopefully you're seeing a few new things, giving you some deck building ideas. That'll help with you, for some of these upcoming events. A lot of leagues are also ongoing now. A lot of areas are starting up their leagues. We've got 7 or 8 league kits that have been purchased that'll ship out in April. And I know at least 1 or 2 of those areas are, my personal league is running a Premier Death Star 2 as our first event. Kind of a way to lead into the April tournament, and I'm sure some of the other leagues may follow suit with that. But right now, Jamulka's in a pretty bad spot here. Because he lost the Visage. He's losing the Search and Destroy. That's each turn. That's 2 damage on each series of turns, because this is each draw phase. Every draw phase. Every draw phase he loses for Search and Destroy. Every draw phase he loses for Visage. So he's losing 2 cards per turn. He doesn't have battle order out, so there's nothing to stop him, force him to pay to drain. So Vader's draining for 2. Mara's draining for 3. The Emperor and Janice are draining for 1. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Game's pretty much going to be over in about 2 turns at this point. Unless light side, by the time light side, if they drew up something pretty big, they're going to be in a lot of trouble there. We see him pitching some Elams and undercovers. I believe plastoid armor makes your characters spies, so you could put them undercover afterwards. But like I said, you kind of guys get a feel for the format and some of the different varieties and different play styles of decks in this environment. Hopefully you'll sign up for the upcoming event. Obviously, the more the merrier. We appreciate having lots of players. You've got the March OCS underway. Still time to sign up. You can get the season pass for $50, all remaining 5 months. Or you can pay $10 a piece and play in each month as you go. Still time to sign up for either of those to get into the tournament. And then in a little bit, in the future, we'll talk about the MPC being played online on GEMP again at the end of April. We'll get signups for that going pretty soon as well. But yeah, we're gonna wrap the show up here. You guys can watch the rest of this game if you want on your own. But you know, Jamalko's going to have one big move here, and I don't know if he's got enough force left to pull it off. He's only activating 10, which is certainly troublesome and problematic, and he's just bleeding out way too many cards. So, thank you guys very much for tuning in tonight. I hope you had a good time with the show. I know I had a good time featuring some of these Premier Death Star 2 decks, and I'll be back next week, the week after. I don't know. Hopefully next week. And we'll jump into some more live games and go from there. But TK422? What? I haven't seen this guy in 10 years. Now we got Elams and all kinds of stuff. There you go. But the Elams are Destiny 4, so they don't turn off Search and Destroy. And he's still going to get bled out from Visage, so still in trouble. So, eh. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a good night.